Hello, and a very warm welcome to Frost Over the World at the start of our 5th season. And our warm thanks indeed to Tony Blair for joining us for that one-off special last week. Later in this programme, as the Pope continues his visit to London amid renewed child abuse scandals in the Catholic Church, I'll be talking to Archbishop Vincent Nichols, the head of the Catholic Church in the UK, plus a senior member of Israel's Foreign Office, who is also a Muslim and a Bedouin, and opera superstar Angela Gheorghiu. But first, Afghanistan. Fresh allegations of corruption have surfaced as the country prepares for parliamentary elections this weekend, with reports of fraudulent registration cards damaging any optimism for democratic progress. It has been a turbulent fortnight for NATO's forces in the country, with many Afghans made absolutely furious by those recent threats to burn copies of the Quran by that small church in Florida. NATO administers over 100,000 troops in Afghanistan, and with me now is Ivo Daalder, who is the United States permanent representative to NATO. Welcome.
Wonderful to be here.
Very good to have you with us. Just let's start with the weekend of the elections and so on. Were the elections ever about to be cancelled or postponed because of the violence in Afghanistan?
No, never.
No, never.
The Afghans have been in charge of these elections. These will be the first Afghan-run elections since 2001, parliamentary elections. We have a lot of confidence that the Afghan security forces, the police and the army, will be able to contain whatever violence is out there, and that people will be able to go to the polls and cast their ballots in peace and security. It's hard to do this, of course, in a conflict-ridden conflict, but we're pretty confident that, at least on the mechanics, things will proceed in the way they're supposed to. We will be watching closely. The world will be watching closely. We do think we have better processes in place to minimize the kind of fraud and problems that we saw the last time around, and we'll just have to see how it goes.
What about the wider issue? What would be your update, Ivo, on the situation? I mean, we read all these statistics, like the 49% that Taliban attacks have increased by 49%, and lots of other statistics like that. Would it mean, therefore, that would it be fair to say or unfair to say that, in fact, as of today, the Taliban are winning?
No, I don't think that would be fair to say. I think the reason we're seeing the violence go up is because NATO is in more places. As of the 31st of August, the surge in troops that the President Obama announced back last December was completed on the U.S. side. On the Allied side, that's still continuing. About 80% of the forces that the Allies were promising to provide are now in place, but 100% of the American forces. We now have 100,000 American troops. That means we're now in places where we weren't before, and we are challenging the Taliban in places where they weren't challenged before. The reason there wasn't any shooting and fighting is because there was nothing to shoot at for the Taliban. There was no NATO presence. Now the NATO and a larger Afghan security force presence is moving into places that they weren't before. That's why you also see the rise in violence overall, but also the rise of violence having to do with normal firing and shooting of guns, because we are challenging the Taliban. So I think what's happening is we're retaking the initiative.
But on the other hand, there are those sort of statistics like 4 years ago, the insurgents were active in only 4 out of 34 of the provinces, and now the figure is 33 out of 34. That would suggest it's going the wrong way. You were putting the point very fairly that things are going the right way, but things are going the wrong way as well, aren't they?
Well, compared to 4 years ago, the situation is worse, no doubt. But one of the realities is that we have under-resourced this conflict for a very long time. We, in fact, allowed the Taliban to expand over the many years. Since about the middle of this decade, they have consistently increased their capability and their reach. And it is only, frankly, in the last 18 months or so that the United States and NATO have taken this as seriously as they must. that the Afghan government has taken it as seriously as it must, and we have gradually, over the past 8 months, build up the forces, and we're now in a position, and we expect over the next few months into early 2011 to really turn the tide, to retake the initiative back, and to build up the capacity of the Afghan security forces and the Afghan government to gradually and over time take control back of their own country.
How long before there could be peace in Afghanistan?
What we're looking for is a situation in which the Afghan government itself is sufficiently strong that it won't be able to be challenged by the insurgency. We are looking at a process where we build up the Afghan government sufficiently so that by the end of 2014, that's the goal that President Karzai has set himself, that the international community endorsed in Kabul in July. By that time, that the Afghan security forces will be in the lead. They will have responsibility for maintaining security throughout the country. So we're talking another 4 years of a transition process. I would expect that the level of violence and the level of fighting, and indeed the level of troops, foreign troops that are in there, will subside during that period of time.
What about the situation on drugs, which is a hell of a problem? Figures say that Afghanistan provides as much as 90% of the world's drugs, although I don't know whether you can measure it exactly.
We have given up, as the U.S. government, the policy of eradication. The Afghan government is still engaged in that. We believe that the way to change this is to provide farmers with an alternative crop, whether it's wheat or whatever, to cultivate, to have prices that are competitive vis-a-vis the poppy trade. And the reason why we want to do this, not only because narcotics is killing young people and people around the world, it is also that the narcotic trade is directly fueling the insurgency. If we can get rid of the poppy trade, if we can have more legitimate agricultural business inside, particularly in the Helmand Valley, in the River Valley, and places where poppies are grown these days, we will also undermine this insurgency and the Taliban's capacity to pay the fighters that sustain the insurgency. So this is a twofer. It's good to going after narcotics. It's good for the health of the people who otherwise would be taking this stuff, and it's good as a part of a counterinsurgency measure. I think the international community inside Afghanistan is working very hard to move us away from poppy cultivation into other much more illicit crops.
So when I was mentioning earlier on the 49% and did it look as though the Taliban was winning, would you go further now and say that NATO, that the coalition, is winning?
I would say that the coalition has a strategy. It has the people leading that strategy, and it now has the resources that gives us a good chance to succeed. But we're at the beginning of that process. We've got, as General Petraeus likes to say, we've got the inputs right. Now, we have the troops, we have the money, we have the people, we have the strategy. Now let's take those inputs and work them for a while inside of Afghanistan so that the outputs are as we would expect them. We're at a turning point. Clearly, there's something where we will find out whether, in fact, the resources there, the forces are sufficient, whether the leadership is the right one, and indeed the strategy is correct. We strongly believe it is. We will look at the results. It'll take some time, and during that time, frankly, the violence will likely to go up rather than down, because we are going into areas where we've never been before. But the end result should be an Afghanistan that is stronger and more capable, slowly but surely taking care of itself in an insurgency that has been significantly weakened.
Ambassador Ivo, thank you very much indeed.
My great pleasure.
Great to have you with us. In a minute, I'll be meeting a man in a fascinating position, the Muslim Bedouin member of Israel's government.